The boy's red toy fire truck hit the tile just as Graham Pierce grabbed for his phone, and Emily Carter stepped between them before the dinner crowd remembered how to breathe. The restaurant smelled of charred steak, lemon polish, and spilled wine, all of it trapped beneath gold pendant lights that made the panic look expensive. Noah stood behind her in his two small sneakers, one hand clutching the hem of her black apron, his face pale under the freckles she had counted since the day he was born. Graham towered over them with a polished smile that did not reach his eyes, his own phone still recording from the white linen table. "Control your child," he said. Emily bent without taking her eyes off him and picked up the toy fire truck, its red paint chipped along one side from years of being carried in Noah's backpack. He said, "Excuse me." Her voice stayed calm. That made Graham angrier. "He filmed me." Noah shook his head hard. "I was playing." Emily felt every table turn toward them, felt her manager freeze near the bar, felt the weight of rent, tips, school lunches, and one eviction notice folded in her purse like a stone. She also saw Graham's phone still angled at her face, not at the dropped water glass, not at the frightened child. Recording, waiting, collecting something. She did not know why, but the detail lodged beneath her skin. In the far corner booth, Lucas Moretti lowered his untouched glass. He had come to the restaurant for a quiet meeting with two men who understood silence better than contracts. But the moment the child flinched, the room changed shape around him. Lucas watched Emily's hand close around the toy fire truck, watched her place it behind her on the service station instead of handing it back, while Graham's temper still filled the space. "Smart. Protective. Controlled. Apologize," Graham said. Emily looked at Noah, then back at the customer. For bumping the chair, yes. A knife clinked against porcelain somewhere nearby. For existing, no. Noah stopped trembling. Lucas noticed that too. Graham's smile thinned. "You think you can speak to guests that way?" "I am speaking to an adult." Emily shifted half an inch, keeping Noah fully behind her. "Try acting like one." The manager finally moved. "Emily." The warning held her paycheck in it. It held next month's rent. It held the cracked ceiling in apartment 3B, where Noah slept under a space heater because the radiator worked only when it felt merciful. Emily heard all of that and still did not move aside. Graham leaned closer, lowering his voice so only the nearest tables could hear. "Single mothers should be careful." Lucas's jaw tightened. Emily's face did not change, but her fingers curled once against her palm. "They usually are. Not careful enough." The words slid out soft and poisonous. Noah pressed closer. Emily's body answered before her mouth did, shoulders squaring, chin lifting, every tired inch of her becoming a wall. "You can complain about me," she said. "You cannot touch him." Graham laughed once, then reached toward the service station where the red toy truck sat. Emily caught his wrist before he reached it, not hard enough to hurt, only firm enough to stop. The entire dining room went silent. Lucas rose. His chair scraped back like a match struck in darkness. Two men at his table stopped talking instantly. Graham turned toward the sound, irritation already forming. Then recognition drained the color from his face. Lucas crossed the room with the measured pace of a man who had never needed to hurry to be obeyed. His tailored black suit absorbed the warm light, and people moved aside before they seemed to realize they were moving. Emily did not know him by name, but she knew power when it entered a room and made every other power smaller. Lucas stopped beside the fallen water glass, looked at Noah, then at Emily's hand still blocking Graham's reach. "Let go," he said quietly. Emily's eyes sharpened. "I was protecting my son." Lucas held her gaze for one beat too long. "I was speaking to him." Graham pulled his hand back as if the air had burned him. Lucas picked up the R. Edit the apartment number echoed longer than the threat itself. Emily did not answer Graham Pierce, and somehow that unsettled him more than fear would have. The restaurant slowly remembered how to move again, forks scraping plates, glasses clinking. Conversations returning in cautious fragments, but Noah stayed close enough that his small shoulder pressed against her hip. The red toy fire truck rested in her palm, warm from being held too tightly. Graham adjusted his jacket and forced a smile toward the room. "Enjoy your evening." Nobody believed him. Lucas Moretti watched him leave through the front entrance, watched the man glance back twice before disappearing into the rain-dark street. Emily expected Lucas to follow. He did not. Instead, he looked at Noah. "You okay?" Noah nodded immediately. Children lied for the people they loved. Emily knew that better than anyone. "We are leaving," she said. Lucas turned toward her. "Good." The answer irritated her more than it should have. "You do not get a vote." A corner of his mouth moved. "I noticed." Noah tugged her sleeve. "Mom." She looked down. "What?" He pointed toward Lucas. "He forgot my truck." The toy was still in her hand. For one absurd second, all three of them stared at it. Then Noah laughed. The sound burst into the tension like a dropped light bulb. Pattern interrupt. Sudden. Bright. Human. Even Emily smiled before exhaustion reclaimed her face. Lucas looked away first. That detail stayed with her. 10 minutes later, rain tapped softly against the city bus shelter while Emily zipped Noah's jacket closed beneath a flickering advertisement panel. The air smelled of wet concrete and diesel fuel. Across the street, the restaurant glowed gold through fogged windows. Noah sat on the bench beside her, driving the red toy truck across the metal railing. "That guy was scary," he said. Emily stared at the passing headlights. "Which one?" Noah thought about it. "The first one." She almost laughed. Almost. A black sedan rolled to the curb. Not close enough to block the sidewalk. Not close enough to force anything. Just present. Lucas remained inside. He never lowered the window. Emily noticed anyway. So did the audience. The dramatic irony tightened quietly between them. Lucas had already called someone. A private security company now sat 2 blocks from apartment 3B, rotating plainclothes patrols around the building without using his name. Emily knew none of that. She only knew a powerful stranger seemed to appear wherever trouble landed. The bus arrived with a sigh of brakes. Noah climbed aboard first. Emily followed. Before the doors closed, she glanced back toward the sedan. Lucas remained motionless behind tinted glass. Their eyes met for less than a second through rain and reflections. Then the bus pulled away. 20 minutes later, Emily carried groceries, a sleeping child, and too many worries up the cracked staircase of her apartment building. The hallway smelled faintly of old paint and overheated wiring. Apartment 3B waited at the end. Home. Temporary, fragile, expensive home. She tucked Noah into bed, placed the red toy truck beside his pillow, and finally allowed herself one slow breath. Then she noticed the envelope. White. Legal-sized. Slipped beneath her door. No stamp. No mailing label. Just her name typed across the front. Emily opened it standing beneath the kitchen light. Inside sat a single notice from a property management company she had never heard of. Redevelopment review. Preliminary occupancy assessment. Most tenants would have ignored it. Emily almost did. Then she saw a familiar logo printed in the lower corner. The same logo she had glimpsed for half a second on a folder tucked beneath Graham Pierce's arm when he left the restaurant. Outside, a car engine started. Across the street, Lucas lowered his phone after receiving a message from one of his investigators. The report contained only 7 words. Graham Pierce is not who he claims. The envelope stayed on Emily's kitchen table all night like something alive. By sunrise, she had read the notice 12 times, each pass making the words feel colder instead of clearer. Redevelopment review. Preliminary occupancy assessment. No direct threat, no official eviction, nothing a tenant could fight yet. Only the polite language people used before they took a home apart brick by brick. Noah ate cereal beside her, pushing the red toy fire truck around the rim of his bowl. "Is school canceled?" he asked. Emily folded the notice quickly. "No," he sighed like a man with taxes. "Worth asking." The tiny complaint cracked the tension just enough that Emily laughed, tired and soft, before kissing his hair. She walked him to school beneath a pale morning sky, one hand holding his backpack strap because the zipper had broken again, the other holding the envelope in her coat pocket. 2 blocks away, a dark sedan kept its distance. Lucas Moretti watched from the back seat while his investigator spoke through a secure line, listing shell companies, property transfers, and one name that kept appearing behind polished paperwork. Graham Pierce. Lucas did not look surprised. Men like Graham rarely invented cruelty. They leased it, licensed it, and filed it under development. At noon, Emily arrived for a short shift at the restaurant and found Lucas seated in the same corner booth, alone this time, a cup of black coffee untouched before him. She nearly turned around. Pride stopped her from running. Rent stopped her from leaving. "We are not open for lunch service," she said. "I know." His gaze dropped to the envelope edge visible in her pocket. Rough morning. Normal morning. That is unfortunate. Emily narrowed her eyes. Do you practice sounding dangerous? Lucas looked at his coffee. No. A server dropped a tray in the kitchen, and someone shouted about toast. For one strange second, the whole restaurant smelled like burnt bread instead of fear. Pattern interrupt, ordinary and ridiculous. Emily exhaled despite herself. Lucas reached beside him and lifted the red toy fire truck from the booth seat. Noah must have dropped it the night before when they fled the dining room. Emily's expression shifted before she could hide it. Where was it? Under the table. He held it out by the roof. Careful, almost formal. Your son protects his equipment poorly. She took it. Their fingers brushed. This time neither pretended not to notice. He is 8. Then he has time. Emily slipped the truck into her apron pocket. Why are you here? Lucas did not answer immediately. Across the restaurant, his phone lit up beside the coffee. On the screen, Emily glimpsed a legal letterhead before he turned it over. Pierce, Calder, and Wren. Same logo as the notice under her door. Same logo, though she did not yet understand how far that thread reached. Lucas understood enough to make his silence feel heavier. You should not sign anything, he said. I did not ask for advice. Good advice arrives badly. So do bad men. He accepted the hit without blinking. That unsettled her more than a defense would have. Fair. The word was quiet. Honest. Too honest for the suit, the reputation, the men who waited outside pretending to read newspapers. Later that afternoon, Emily delivered a takeout order to Mercy Children's Rehabilitation Center, a side job she took whenever the restaurant needed extra runners. She stepped into the therapy wing with Noah's toy truck still in her pocket and stopped beside the billing window. Lucas stood there again, not looking at her, signing a payment form for a boy with a leg brace whose mother had been counting crumpled bills into her palm. The clerk slid a receipt toward him. Lucas folded it once, placed it face down, and walked away before the woman could turn around. Emily saw the boy's mother begin to cry without knowing who had changed her day. Lucas saw Emily in the glass reflection and closed his hand around nothing. You keep appearing, she said when he reached her. You keep noticing. She wanted to dismiss him. Instead, her gaze moved to the therapy room, where the boy was learning to walk between parallel bars. Why him? Lucas looked at the child, then away. Because someone should. No speech. No confession. Only a decision left behind in ink. Emily touched the red toy truck in her pocket. For the first time, she wondered whether power could kneel without being asked. Then her phone buzzed. A message from her landlord. Emergency tenant meeting tonight. Attendance required. Lucas read the words reflected in her eyes before she lowered the screen, and behind him, a courier entered carrying a sealed folder stamped with the same logo she had seen twice now. The tenant meeting began 5 minutes late and felt dangerous before anyone spoke. Folding chairs filled the basement laundry room beneath apartment 3B, their metal legs scraping concrete, while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with a tired electric hum. The air smelled of detergent, damp, cement, and the cheap coffee someone had left beside the sign-in sheet. Emily sat near the back with Noah beside her, one arm draped over the chair behind him. The red toy fire truck rolled slowly across his knee while neighbors whispered about rising rents and strange notices slipped beneath doors. Then the landlord cleared his throat. Every conversation died at once. The property has entered redevelopment review. A collective silence settled over the room. Not surprise. Recognition. The kind people carried when bad news finally arrived wearing its real name. Noah stopped rolling the truck. Emily folded her hands. Across town, Lucas Moretti listened to the same announcement through a phone resting on his desk. One of his investigators sat opposite him, taking notes while surveillance audio crackled softly through a speaker. Lucas had not placed anyone inside the building to watch Emily. He had placed them there because Graham Pierce had become interesting. Emily was simply standing near the fire. The distinction mattered more to him than anyone else. Potential relocation assistance will be available, the landlord continued. Several tenants laughed bitterly. One elderly woman stood up. Relocation where? No answer came immediately. The pause answered enough. Noah glanced at Emily. She squeezed his shoulder once. Not reassurance. Presence. The meeting dragged forward through percentages, legal terminology, and promises nobody trusted. Then a sharp metallic crash exploded from the laundry area behind them. Every head snapped around. A dryer door had fallen completely off its hinges. For one absurd second, The room stared at the machine as if it had staged a protest. Noah laughed first. A few others followed. The tension fractured. Briefly, human beings always found strange places to breathe. Then reality returned. Emily watched papers being distributed row by row. Occupancy assessments, redevelopment notices, future hearings. One page carried a company logo she recognized instantly. The same logo from the envelope. The same logo from the restaurant. The same logo from the folder delivered to Mercy Rehabilitation. 3 appearances. 3 accidents that no longer felt accidental. She slipped the paper into her bag without comment. 40 minutes later, the meeting ended. Rain tapped softly against the basement windows. Neighbors drifted toward the stairs in small, defeated groups. Noah remained seated on the floor, driving the red toy truck between chair legs. Emily crouched beside him. Time to go. 5 more minutes. She opened her mouth to refuse, then stopped. The truck's tiny wheels clicked against concrete. The sound echoed strangely through the emptying room. Upstairs, a black SUV rolled slowly past the building. Lucas sat inside, reviewing photographs taken that afternoon. One image showed Graham Pierce entering a private office. Another showed him leaving with 3 property executives. Lucas studied the faces without expression. Then his attention shifted. Across the street from the apartment building, a teenage boy stumbled off a bicycle and crashed hard onto wet pavement. Before anyone else moved, Noah bolted from the basement exit, red truck forgotten on the steps. Emily followed instantly. She reached the injured teenager first, kneeling in the rain while checking his scraped hands and bent wrist. Noah stood nearby holding the bicycle upright. No hesitation. No audience. Just instinct. Lucas watched through the windshield. The first crack appeared then, small enough to miss. He lowered the surveillance photographs and looked away from business for the first time all evening. When Emily finally guided Noah back toward the entrance, she discovered the red toy fire truck waiting on the bottom stair. Someone had picked it up and set it carefully where it would not be forgotten. She glanced toward the street. The black SUV was already gone. Later that night, after Noah fell asleep on the couch and the rain deepened outside, Emily unfolded the redevelopment packet one final time. A second document slid loose from between the pages. She had never seen it before. It was not addressed to any tenant. It was marked confidential. And at the bottom sat Graham Pierce's signature beside a date scheduled exactly 3 weeks from now. The confidential page became a weapon before Emily understood its shape. She stood in the restaurant pantry with flour dust on her sleeve, the paper folded inside her apron, and Noah's red toy fire truck tucked beside her order pad because he had begged her to keep it safe during school. Dinner rush screamed beyond the door. Plates clattered. Oil hissed. Someone shouted for table 6. Then Graham Pierce walked into the kitchen like he owned the heat. "We need to talk." Emily turned slowly. "Not here. Especially here." He held up his phone. On the screen was footage from the night before. Noah running into the rain. Emily kneeling beside the injured teenager. The apartment building behind them. The timestamp bright as a threat. Emily's throat tightened. Graham smiled. Poor supervision. He helped someone. Courts prefer patterns. A busboy froze near the freezer. Emily looked at him. "Go." He went. Graham stepped closer. "You found my document." Emily said nothing. Her hand moved to her apron pocket. Lucas Moretti sat in the private dining room beyond the kitchen wall, listening to one of his men describe Pierce's shell company structure in a low voice. He did not know Graham was already inside the kitchen. The audience did. The dramatic irony tightened like wire. Graham lowered his voice. "Return it." "No, think about your son." Emily's fingers closed around the red fire truck. Its tiny ladder pressed into her palm. "I always do." Graham's eyes dropped to the toy. "Cute." He reached for it. Emily stepped back. "Do not." "It is evidence now." "Of what?" "Instability." The word hit harder than a shout. Emily's face stayed still. "That cost her." Graham placed another paper on the prep table. Notice of workplace misconduct. Character concern. Child endangerment review. Sign this. Emily stared at the page. "You wrote it already. You made it easy." The kitchen noise faded into a thin metallic hum. Graham leaned in. "Sign, or lose the apartment." "That is illegal." "Prove it." Emily's thumb found her phone inside the apron pocket. One tap. "Recording." "Say it again." Graham's smile sharpened. "Careful. Say it clearly." He moved fast, snatching toward the pocket. Emily twisted away, hitting the shelf behind her. A stack of mixing bowls crashed down, stainless steel ringing against tile. The kitchen stopped. Graham grabbed the red toy fire truck instead. Noah's truck. The one he slept beside. The one he believed saved people. Emily's eyes changed. Not fear. Line crossed. Give it back. Graham held it above the prep sink. Sign. Give it back. Homes disappear, Emily. Silence cut through the kitchen. Lucas appeared at the pantry door. No one had heard him enter. His black suit looked wrong against sacks of flour and dented shelves, too controlled for a room full of steam. Graham did not turn at first. This is private. Lucas's voice was quiet. Not anymore. Emily did not look at Lucas. She looked at the toy in Graham's hand and kept her phone recording. He threatened my home. Graham laughed. She is emotional. Emily lifted her chin. I am accurate. Lucas stepped farther into the pantry, but he stopped beside Emily, not in front of her. Return the truck. Graham's fingers tightened around it. Or what? Lucas looked at the phone in Emily's pocket, then at Graham. Or she keeps proving you. For the first time, Graham understood the trap was not Lucas. It was Emily. His face emptied. Emily held out her hand. Graham dropped the red fire truck into her palm. Then Noah's school number flashed across her phone screen, and the recording stopped as the call came through. Edit. The school secretary's voice sounded too careful. Emily knew fear before the explanation arrived. It lived in pauses like that. She stood frozen beside the pantry shelf while the restaurant noise returned around her in distant, distorted waves. Your son is safe, the woman said. The relief hit first. The dread followed immediately after. Safe meant something had happened. Emily closed her eyes. What happened? Across the room, Graham Pierce had already stepped away, straightening his jacket as if the conversation had never occurred. Lucas watched him leave without moving. The audience knew something Emily did not. 2 private security contractors hired anonymously 3 days earlier had been stationed near Noah's school during pickup hours. Lucas had arranged it quietly. Emily knew nothing about them. There was an incident, the secretary said. You should come. 25 minutes later, Emily sat in a hard plastic chair outside the principal's office while rain slid down the windows in slow gray lines. Noah sat beside her, silent. That frightened her more than tears. The red toy fire truck rested in his lap. One wheel had snapped loose. He kept turning it between his fingers anyway. The hallway smelled faintly of floor wax and wet coats. Time dragged. A second hand clicked somewhere behind a closed office door. Each sound felt larger than it should have. Finally, the principal emerged carrying a report. A man approached the fence. Emily's stomach tightened. Who? We do not know. Noah looked down at the broken truck. He asked questions. Emily knelt immediately. What questions? Noah swallowed. Where we lived. The hallway became very quiet. No shouting. No drama. Just silence heavy enough to bend the air. Emily touched her son's shoulder. He leaned into her without looking up. Fear had finally found its shape. Not losing an apartment. Not losing a job. Losing the ability to keep her child safe. Later that evening, rain deepened into a steady storm. Noah fell asleep on the couch with the broken fire truck beside him while cartoons played quietly to an empty room. Emily sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers. The redevelopment notice. The confidential document. The school report. Each one seemed connected by invisible thread. Apartment 3B felt smaller than ever. Water ticked softly through old pipes inside the walls. Then came a knock at the door. 3 measured taps. Emily looked through the peephole. Lucas stood alone in the hallway. She almost left him there. Almost. When she opened the door, neither spoke immediately. Rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. He held a plain manila folder. Bad timing, he asked. Emily laughed once without humor. Excellent timing. He handed her the folder. Inside were property records, ownership transfers, and legal filings connected to the redevelopment project. Several pages carried highlighted sections. One company name appeared repeatedly. Pierce Urban Holdings. Emily lowered the papers. Why are you helping? Lucas looked past her toward the sleeping boy on the couch. The broken fire truck rested against Noah's chest. Because someone should. The same answer. The same refusal to take credit. Emily hated how much she believed it now. Silence settled between them. Heavy. Unfinished. Then Lucas reached into his coat and placed another document on the table. A purchase agreement. She scanned the first page. Then the second. Her eyes widened. You bought it. Lucas said nothing. The signature line answered for him. The apartment building. The entire property. The redevelopment rights. Frozen effective immediately. Redemption arrived without announcement, hidden inside paperwork. Emily stared at the page. Why keep your name off this? Lucas glanced toward Noah again. Some things work better quietly. The broken fire truck caught the kitchen light. For the first time, the toy looked less like a child's possession and more like a promise everyone kept carrying for different reasons. Emily lifted it carefully and set it on the table between them. Not a gift, not surrender, a shared truth. Lucas looked at it for a long moment. Then his phone vibrated. One message, one attachment, a scanned legal contract. Emily saw the color leave his face before she saw the screen. Across the top of the document sat the logo she recognized immediately. Beneath it was Graham Pierce's name. And beneath that, in smaller print, the scheduled removal date for every tenant in the building had been moved forward to tomorrow morning. The removal date was not the twist. The signature beneath it was. Emily stood at her kitchen table while stormwater rattled against the fire escape, and Noah slept 3 feet away with his broken red truck against his chest. Lucas held the contract under the yellow light, his thumb pressed near the final page. Graham Pierce's name appeared where expected. The company logo appeared where expected. Then Emily saw the witness line. Her breath stopped. The man from the restaurant had not been a random customer with a temper and a camera. He was legal counsel for the same redevelopment firm trying to empty her building. Lucas turned the page without speaking. Hey. Still image was clipped behind the contract. Emily at the restaurant. Noah behind her. Graham's phone raised before the water glass ever fell. Another image followed. Noah near the bus shelter. Then the school fence. The evidence arranged itself in silence. Graham had not recorded an outburst. He had tried to manufacture one. The red fire truck slid from Noah's sleeping hand and hit the floor with a soft plastic click. He woke instantly. Mom. Emily moved to him, but Lucas reached the toy first. He picked it up carefully, snapped the loose wool back into place with one steady push, and placed it in Noah's palm. Still works. Noah looked at him. It saves people. Lucas nodded once. Then keep it ready. Emily watched the exchange, and the toy changed meaning in her hands without being held. It had never been only Noah's comfort. It had been the thing Graham kept trying to take because it proved what Emily was before any court could rename her. A mother. A witness. A woman who moved toward danger when a child stood in its path. Lucas laid the contract on the table and pointed to a paragraph buried beneath legal language. Tenant conduct incident. Restaurant disturbance. Child supervision concern. Accelerated removal justified. Emily touched the page with 2 fingers. He planned it. Lucas said nothing. He did not need to. The 3 breadcrumbs came back with cruel clarity. Graham filming instead of arguing. The logo on the envelope. The same legal mark on the courier folder. Noah climbed off the couch, still holding the repaired truck. Are we leaving? Emily looked at the packed fear inside his small face and chose not to lie. Not quietly. Lucas's phone vibrated again. A live video feed opened from the lobby downstairs. Graham Pierce stood outside apartment 3B with 2 officers, a property representative, and a locksmith. Too early. Too clean. Too confident. Emily's hand closed around the table edge. Lucas reached for his coat. Stay here. Emily looked at him. No, he stopped. That mattered. She picked up the contract, folded it once, and slipped it into her purse beside the confidential page and the recording from the pantry. Then she took Noah's free hand. This is our home. Lucas looked at the boy, then at the red toy truck, then opened the apartment door for them. Downstairs, Graham glanced up as they entered the lobby together, and his smile returned like a blade finding light. Right on time, he said. Emily stepped forward before Lucas could. So are we. Edit the locksmith reached for apartment 3B before anyone else moved. Emily saw it happen through the lobby glass and felt Noah's fingers tighten around hers. Rain hammered the windows. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Graham Pierce stood beside the property representative with the confidence of a man who believed paperwork could erase people. Final notice, he said. Emily stepped forward. You are early. Graham smiled. You are late. The officers exchanged a look. Something already felt wrong. Lucas remained half a step behind Emily, close enough to help, far enough to let her choose her own fight. Noah stood beside the mailboxes holding the red toy fire truck against his chest. Graham noticed it immediately. He always noticed leverage. "Children adapt," he said. Emily's jaw tightened. "You do not know mine." The locksmith inserted the key. Then the front door opened behind them. 3 tenants entered carrying copies of the same confidential document Emily had found. Then 2 more. Then 7 more. The lobby filled quickly. Voices rose. Phones appeared. Cameras turned on. Graham's smile faltered for the first time. Emily removed the pantry recording from her purse and handed her phone directly to one of the officers. "Listen." Nobody spoke while the audio played. Graham's threat, his pressure, his attempt to exchange housing security for silence. The words sounded uglier outside his own mouth. One officer lowered the phone slowly. "Is this authentic?" "Yes," Emily said. Graham opened his mouth. Lucas finally spoke. "Be careful." Graham ignored him. "Mistake." A second tenant stepped forward carrying property records. Then a third carried payment transfers. Then the elderly woman from the basement meeting produced a signed notice dated after the redevelopment approval should have been frozen. Documents began appearing faster than excuses. The pressure shifted direction. Graham felt it. So did everyone else. Then came the first false resolution. The property representative reviewed the papers. The officers stepped aside. The locksmith removed the key. One officer informed Graham that enforcement would be suspended pending investigation. Relief moved through the lobby like a released breath. Tenants hugged. Noah smiled. Emily closed her eyes briefly. The building seemed safe. The eviction seemed stopped. The fight seemed won. For 4 precious minutes, everyone believed it. Then Graham laughed. Softly. "Check the utility notice." Silence returned. A tenant unfolded a newly posted document taped near the mailboxes. Emergency safety closure. Structural review. Effective immediately. The air vanished from the room. One signature at the bottom. Graham Pierce. Different weapon. Same goal. False resolution shattered instantly. Emily stared at the page. If the building closed for safety reasons, families would still lose their homes before any investigation finished. The larger question arrived all at once. Graham was willing to lose the legal battle. What else had he prepared? Lucas stepped forward. "Release the acquisition." Every head turned. His attorney appeared from the entrance carrying a folder. Purchase documents. Ownership transfer. Emergency suspension authority. The building no longer belonged to the redevelopment company. It belonged to Lucas. Effective at midnight. Graham went completely still. The attorney handed copies to the officers. The property representative read the first page, then the second, then stopped speaking entirely. Control left Graham's face in visible stages. Gone. Finished. Permanent. The officers informed him he was being detained for questioning related to fraudulent filings and coercive practices. Tenants watched without sympathy. Graham looked directly at Emily. "This is not over." Emily met his eyes. "It is for you." The officers escorted him outside into the rain. No one followed. Noah stepped forward then, placing the red toy fire truck on top of the mailbox row between the departing villain and the families who remained. The small toy seemed strangely important now. A line drawn. A promise kept. The circle nearly complete. Lucas looked at it. Emily looked at him. Relief should have arrived. Instead, Lucas's phone vibrated. One message. One photograph. He opened it. The color disappeared from his face. Emily saw the image over his shoulder. It was taken less than 10 minutes earlier. Noah walking home from school. Someone had been following him. And the person holding the camera was not Graham Pierce. The second photographer broke the silence harder than Graham ever had. Lucas held the phone under the lobby light while rain streaked the glass doors behind him, and Emily stood close enough to see the blurred shape of Noah's backpack in the image. The angle came from across the school entrance. Low, patient, deliberate. Noah, unaware, walking beside another child with the red toy fire truck visible through the mesh pocket of his backpack. Emily's hand went to her son before thought arrived. Noah looked up at her, confused by the sudden pressure of her fingers around his shoulder. "Mom." She crouched in front of him. "You are safe." He searched her face. Children measured truth by breathing, not words. Lucas stepped away from the tenants and made one quiet call. Find the sender. No threat. No performance. Just an order shaped like certainty. Emily rose slowly, and this time she did not tell him to stop. That mattered. 5 minutes later, Lucas's attorney entered again, followed by a woman in a gray coat carrying a slim tablet. She was the investigator who had traced Pierce Urban Holdings through 6 shell companies and 3 quiet political donors. She enlarged the photograph on her screen. This did not come from Graham. Emily's stomach tightened. Then who? The woman swiped once. A second photograph appeared. The same school entrance. Same angle. Different day. In the reflection of a parked car window, a man's face appeared, half hidden by a cap. Lucas leaned closer. His expression changed, not with rage, but recognition. "Darren Vale," he said. Emily looked at him. "Who is that?" Lucas handed the phone back to his investigator. "Pierce's private contractor." The investigator nodded. "Licensed surveillance. Expired 2 years ago." Noah hugged the red toy fire truck against his chest, as if he had understood enough. Emily turned him gently toward Mrs. Alvarez, the elderly tenant from the basement meeting. "Can he stand with you?" Noah hesitated. Emily touched the truck. "Just for a minute." He nodded and went, not because he was fearless, but because she had asked him like his courage belonged to him. Lucas watched that, and the old hardness in his face shifted again. Outside, 2 police cars pulled to the curb. Darren Vale was not in the lobby. He was not near the school. He had not come to the building for a final act. He had sent the photograph because Graham's network had already begun collapsing, and men without power often tried to borrow fear. Lucas's investigator placed printed records on the mailbox row beside Noah's toy truck. Payments from Pierce Urban Holdings. Surveillance logs. Images of children and tenants. Time-stamped routes. Apartment numbers. The officers read in silence. Emily felt sick, but her voice stayed steady when she gave her statement. "He followed my son." "Do you recognize him?" one officer asked. She looked at the reflection image again. "No." Lucas stood beside her, not speaking for her. The officer asked another question. Emily answered. Then another. She answered that too. By the time the rain eased, a warrant had been issued for Darren Vale. Graham's earlier statement had turned into evidence against himself, and the building was no longer a target on paper or in practice. The final threat did not end with a dramatic confrontation. It ended with records, witnesses, and Emily refusing to disappear from her own story. Morning came slowly. The lobby emptied by degrees. Tenants returned upstairs carrying papers that no longer felt like warnings. Mrs. Alvarez brought Noah back, and he immediately placed the red fire truck on Lucas's open palm. "You can check it," he said. Lucas lowered himself to one knee, expensive coat brushing the damp floor, and inspected the repaired wheel with solemn attention. "Solid work." Noah's chest lifted. "It still saves people." Lucas handed it back. "Then it belongs with you." Emily watched him choose humility in front of her child, and the last piece of fear inside her loosened enough to let breath through. Later that week, the apartment building smelled of fresh paint instead of damp carpet. The broken basement dryer was gone. The front door lock had been replaced, not to keep tenants out, but to keep them protected. A notice in the lobby announced long-term rent stabilization, legal aid for every resident, and a community safety office funded anonymously until Emily saw Lucas's signature on the final page and raised one eyebrow at him. He only shrugged. Bad habit. Helping quietly, signing too visibly. She smiled despite herself. Noah ran past them toward the courtyard, his backpack bouncing, the red toy fire truck in one hand. The small playground behind the building had been repaired in 3 days. New swings, fresh mulch, a painted bench under the maple tree. Emily stopped at the gate, taking in the place her son could finally enter without her scanning every corner first. Lucas stood beside her, close but not claiming space that was not offered. "You got what you wanted," she said. He looked at Noah climbing the slide. "Not all of it." Emily did not rush the silence. He had earned that much. "I wanted power to mean protection," Lucas said, "not control." Emily looked at his hand resting near the gate latch, open, waiting for nothing. "Then keep choosing that." Noah ran back before Lucas could answer and pressed the red fire truck into Lucas's palm. "Carry it this time." Lucas looked at Emily first. She nodded once. He accepted the toy carefully, like a trust given by someone too young to understand how rare that was. Emily slipped her hand into his, not because she needed saving, but because she had chosen who could walk beside her. Lucas held the red toy fire truck in one hand, held Emily's hand with the other, and walked with her toward the playground where Noah was waiting.